This episode, no father, no king. Just a broken old man broken by the whiskey. Welcome back to Growing Up Punk, the podcast about punk rock and all of its friends. We're continuing our label series. This time we're looking at Bridge 9 Records, and specifically Aaron sits down with Johnny Smrdel from Beloved and Advent. Of course, Beloved doing all of their releases on Solid State Records, Advent doing a couple there as well, but the latest record from Advent was actually released on Bridge 9, so they talk about that kind of transition, what led to that. As well, Johnny's going to share his 5 favorite releases from Bridge 9 Records. Before we get there, though, let's just go through the housekeeping. Follow us on social media, at Growing Punk Pod. That's Instagram and Twitter. You'll find our personal Instagrams and Twitters there as well. You can find us online, growingpunkpod.com. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, all of that good stuff. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube. And wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, you rate, you review, all that good stuff. Let's not waste any more time. This is Aaron sitting down with Johnny of Beloved and Advent, sharing his 5 favorite Bridge 9 records.
So what's the first memory you have of hearing about Bridge 9 Records? Do you remember what the band or the release was?
It was American Nightmare.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I grew up in punk, got into it. And so some of my first favorite hardcore bands were the bands that had that good mixture of punk and hardcore, like traditional hardcore.
Right.
And when American Nightmare put out that 7-inch, it kind of blew my mind, like a sound like that. Tim, who was in 10 Yard Fight, I liked 10 Yard Fight, obviously, but and then when 10 Yard Fight ended, I believe they ended. It was like 99. I believe that's when they ended. And they did the 7-inch that we'll talk about. I was like, done. This new level where they're taking it is so different. It's the same, but it's different. It's super unique. And I was all in. And there's a really amazing story that caught my attention. And it may be folklore. So I haven't gotten to verify this with Chris from Bridge 9, the owner of Bridge 9. I believe Chris, and this was like the rumor mill going around on the B9 boards and through just hardcore, is Chris got paid to fight in an alley, and he won the fight, and he got enough money to press that first 7-inch for American Nightmare, and that's what launched the label pretty much.
Yeah, that's about as hardcore as it gets.
Yeah, it's amazing, and the most Boston thing ever.
Yeah. So when you got that 7-inch, like, did you you notice the label on it at that point, or kind of how did you kind of get more accustomed to it and start realizing, like, okay, this is a label that's putting out music that I'm interested in, I want to follow them, I'll buy whatever their logo is on. Kind of how did that all come about?
Yeah. So when that 7-inch came out, I was in a band. I did college for 1 year. 2 years of college. And one of those years, I lived about 4 hours away in a town called Greenville, North Carolina. And some friends that North Carolina's always had a really rich connection, so city connection. There was never like this city didn't like that city. Some bigger cities are like that. North Carolina, so Charlotte and Raleigh are the 2 major cities in North Carolina. I grew up in a small town called Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is, if you've ever heard of the Andy Griffith Show, that's Mayberry. That's where I grew up. But it's closest to Winston-Salem. And so Charlotte's in the south, Raleigh's in the east, and then Winston-Salem's kind of right in between the two. And so shows would happen in that triangle area, and everyone would go everywhere. And so everyone was connected. And I was playing in a band called Over and Out that later, before I joined, or right when I joined Beloved, they ended up signing with a label called Stab and Kill that was in that same kind of family as Bridge 9. So Nick Troutman, who played guitar in that band, who's still a friend of mine to this day, Nick was super deep into that style of hardcore. And I remember he called me. We didn't have cell phones, or was at band practice, and we listened to that 7-inch. And then, just like anything, you find that 7-inch and you're like, this is like nothing really going on right now. I need to dig deeper. And so mean, that's kind of how it is. But I'll say this: I don't for any label. I was never I'm going to buy everything that's on Bridge 9. I was always like, I'm going to listen to everything at Bridge 9, and if it's my thing, I'll buy it. And it just so happens that some of my favorite bands, Chris at Bridge 9, put some of my favorite bands' records out.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So, kind of moving ahead, how did Advent, end up connecting with Bridge 9? You'd had a history with Tooth and Nail, Solid State for a long time.
Dude.
So, kind of how did, was it just because there was a break in there, or I'd love to hear how you connected with them.
I mean, it is the lamest thing, the lamest answer I could give, which to me it's not lame, but a lot of people probably, it was like a divine thing, like how it happened. So Advent, so kind of going back a little bit. So Beloved, we put out one record with Solid State, and we were like, okay, the band, it's time to end. Matt, Joe, and I, Joe, and I, we were like, we don't want to stop playing music. We don't want to stop playing heavy music. And Beloved has kind of two, like Matt, Joe, and I are super into heavy music. Dusty and Josh were in to the more rock side. And that's what made Beloved, I think, dynamic like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when we split off, the way the Beloved contract was, it was, I believe, like one with the option of three. So you put one record out, and then Solid State has first refusal for 3 consecutive records. And so we put that record out. We decided not to be a band anymore, so Advent started. So under the contract that Matt, Joe, and I were signed, we had to take it to Solid State. So Solid State put it out. They put 2 records out. Super thankful for that. But by the time Naked and Cold came out, I think Solid State was done. Like when we sent them that record, I think they were like, what are we going to do with this? Like this is not our sound. It's not, we don't really put things out like this. And so it was kind of a lackluster. They just put it out. And
yeah. Was that album that different? I can't recall exactly right now.
To me, it wasn't. But I mean, to us, like, I feel like we really found our sound on Naked and Cold. But it just didn't seem like it wasn't Solid State's bag, right? Like they were, that's when like Under Oath is becoming the Under Oath that everyone knows.
Right.
Like these incredible bands with incredible people, but money makers, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, that record, I believe they're only chasing safety went at least gold. So at least 500,000 copies in the US. And so when we put that record out, if you put those 2 albums together, like they just don't compare. Like it's not the same fans at all. And we recognize that, the label recognized that. So we decided, my wife and I had our daughter, and we were still trying to do it, right? Like, and it, like when you're in a hardcore band trying to make it happen and trying to do it, it's still hard, like we're not making any money from it. I'm like working, using my PTO, so my vacation time to tour as much as possible, not being able to go on vacation with your family because the vacation time you have, you're using to tour.
Right.
And it was like, guys, like, I'm not sure if this is really going to work. And there's no denying, like, Advent is a spirit-centered hardcore band. We were wondering, some guys were like wondering where they kind of stood. And as you grow older, you kind of do that. And it was like, okay, if we're kind of unsure on this, and we've got this family stuff going, maybe it's time to take a break. So we quit the band. And 4 years later, Joe, whose father passed away suddenly, who everyone in Advent, everyone in Beloved was super, super close with Joe's family. They're incredible. Beloved would have been nothing without Joe's family. Everyone in Beloved's family, but Joe's family was super important and close. And obviously when you're at that stage in life and you lose a parent, it affects you. And so we were like, you know what? Advent was a band that we just didn't write songs to be cool, right? We write songs to say something. And Joe had to say something. Like he had to get it out. And so we all collectively talked and we're like, let's see if we can still write songs. We got together, we started writing, and it worked. The contract had kind of expired, right? So we didn't have a label. We were kind of good. We were kind of glad at that because we knew where we were going. Now the belief is the same for Advent. So like the spirit of Advent hasn't changed. The sound has gotten, a little more grittier, heavier, whatever. And we just knew that Solid State, it wasn't right. So we assumed, we didn't know if anyone would be interested, right? Like we were like, I don't think anyone's going to be interested. Maybe we'll just put this out ourselves, try to sell some shirts to put a 7-inch out, blah, blah, blah. So we randomly, we put I think it was like on Instagram, like, yeah, we're coming back and this is what's going to happen. We recorded the record. We paid for it ourselves. We didn't do like a GoFundMe or anything. Yeah. We sold some merch. We paid for the record, and we were literally just going to do it. And then we get a random email from Bridge 9 saying, hey, we'd love to talk with you. So of course I crap my pants. Yeah. I call all the guys. I'm like, holy crap, this email just came through. And so I got on with the Bridge 9 crew, and long story short, someone had given Chris Naked and Cold after we had not been a band. And I think he listened to it for the first time. What he told me was obviously that he never paid attention to it because that type, he was just not into a Solid State band. That's just not his thing. Yep. Someone gave him the record. Some of the guys who worked in the warehouse liked the record, gave it to him, and he heard that we were coming out, and he was like, man, I think it would be really cool to put a record out. So it was literally like there was we didn't pitch it to them. I'm still blown away by it. I'm 38 years old, and I'm like, I can't believe that Advent, who we are, a band of people that believe in Jesus and love Jesus, and we write songs that are centered around that. And as far as I know, we're the first, Christian, whatever you want to call it, band that Bridge 9 has ever considered and pressed a record for.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I mean, they have been it's been one of the greatest business relationships I've ever had in music. The one-page contract. We own the songs because we recorded them. They pressed the record. They gave us a certain number of the records, and they promoted it, and it was beautiful. So it's such an amazing partnership, and we feel so lucky that we get to be a part of some of our favorite bands.
Yeah, that's amazing. So are you guys still on Bridge 9, or was that just for that release, or is it kind of just depending on what happens with the band? And
yeah, super. It was essentially like a one, like, let's do this, and you put some more music out. Let's hear it. If we have time to put it out, we'll work with it. So it was such a cool, cool opportunity. So yeah, we'll always technically be on Bridge 9. Like Pain and Suffering is part of the Bridge 9 discography. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, it seems like it's pretty common now for bands to, kind of hop labels just depending on contracts when things run out. But yeah, it's a pretty unique case, where you guys came back, you've been through the whole Beloved thing and then starting over with Advent and then taking time away. And so it's really, really neat how that kind of all worked out.
Yeah, it was, we had talked with some other labels that we were friends with, but they kind of just felt that, the content that we sing about, they just didn't want that associated with their label. I mean, hardcore is weird like that, right? Like,
yeah. Even though you can't really tell what you're saying anyways, so.
But Chris was, I'll say, like, Chris never said, hey, I need to see your lyrics to see if we're going to allow this. Like nothing like that. Like it's such a cool, it's like, hey, we know who you are. We know what you're about. We know how you do things, and we want to do this record.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Well, and it goes to show the integrity of a label as well, because, why can they allow 20 bands to have X content and then yours because it doesn't agree with them? It's like, well, there's I'm sure there's lyrics from other bands that maybe they don't agree with either, but because it's not tagged to faith or spirituality,
Totally.
bands can just do whatever. So yeah, that's really cool that a label can see past that and realize that it's more about the integrity of the music than just the lyrical content or personal beliefs of a band or something like that. So that's really
and
cool
when you boil it down for like what we believe as a band, it's probably pretty in line with a lot of the people on that label. We just look at things in a deeper way, and it's just cool that those stigmas of closed-minded Christians who don't know anything are racist or whatever that looks like. They didn't allow those stigmas to stick.
Right.
They went into it with open minds to like really see, do we agree with you artistically? Yes. Is it a fit? Yes. Let's do this.
Yeah. And what was the response to that album overall?
I think really well. There's still like since as Beloved, so we made a conscious choice to not really do Christian tours. We did one big one, and it was mainly because Remove the Earth was coming out. So it was like Demon Hunter, Living Sacrifice, The Famine, Oh Sleeper, and Us. It was like a solid state tour.
Yeah,
we opened.
Cool.
Really, Living Sacrifice is one of the greatest
for sure.
metal bands of all time. And if the reality is, if they weren't believers, they'd be as big as Sepultura. Insane. Going back to listen, I am so surprised that I don't think on the 2 Solid State episodes anyone talked about Living Sacrifice, which is insane. And so I'm nervous about this, like talking about my top 5 Bridge 9, because I was like, how did no one talk about Living Sacrifice, even though we know it's hilarious. But so we did that, and it was incredible. But so the majority of our friends that were bands were not Christian bands, and we did a lot of tours, and we're told like we can't play, or if you I remember we did a tour with Shai Hulud, Reign Supreme, who are some of our best friends ever. Jay and Clint and Mikey, all those guys are such important people still in our lives. Those guys vouched for us hard. Like I remember we did a tour with them. I think it was in like Indiana or Indianapolis or something like that. We played a house show, and the promoter asked Jay, he's like, "Hey, can you have Advent play last so the majority of the people don't have to sit through them and they can just leave, and then so you guys play?" And Jay was like, "No, like anyone who thinks Reign Supreme's an awesome band that doesn't think Advent's an awesome band, we don't want them to watch it." Like just real dudes.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, we did I remember we played with, it was Shai Hulud, Reign Supreme, and The Carrier, and us. We played in New York City, and the promoter emailed us, and we're like, "If you say one thing about God, you will not be allowed to play the show." I think at first they said we couldn't play the show, and all the other bands were like, "Well, we just won't do the show." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll do it," but they have to follow these strict guidelines. And you're like, "What is going on?" So we're used to that, right? Like people not like they hear this is the band we are, so we're not going to listen to it. But I think so. I don't. It's weird, right? From the inside looking out, saying how was it accepted? I think it was accepted really well. We know that we're not like a top selling record for Bridge 9, but it did really well. We played all the shows we play are incredible. So I think it did well, right? Like who knows?
No,
did you
cool.
like it? Did you think it was good?
It was a few years ago now.
2017.
Yeah. So it's not super fresh in my mind. I was trying to catch up on all these albums a bit here today, so I didn't get to listen through all the Advent stuff again. But I'm just kind of curious, whether it's press or just coming back after a time away, do people kind of remember still, or do you feel like you're kind of like fighting for your spot again after, kind of being out of it for a few years, or?
I don't think so. I think that we've been really fortunate that, so when we ended, Naked and Cold had kind of, I think was almost at its arc. We hadn't started coming down yet. And so there were a lot of people that heard that record that never got to see us. And so when we came back, and we came back really loosely, like,
right.
Joe and I both have kids. Mike lives in Portland. Jordan lives in Nashville. So it's whenever we play, we play. So shows were really good. We met a lot of people that were like, wow, like I was 17 when Pain and Suffering came out, Naked and Cold. And so I never got to see you. And so now I'm cool. Older. I'm, 22, 23, whatever now. And I actually get to see you guys and see you play these songs and these new songs. So I think that we've always been very respectful in our scene. So we have been very fortunate to have earned respect. And I think this is a really important thing that people don't talk about a lot. I think it is important to earn respect in the scene you're in and the state you're in by putting in the work, being a steward of this thing that we love called hardcore, right? Like I think you need to serve and not worry about being served. And we have always put a very big emphasis on serving, whether it's letting bands stay with us, putting on shows in our hometown for bands, bands within North Carolina, supporting those bands and traveling for those bands. So anytime we play, because we choose to serve, I believe we have some respect in some of these bigger scenes. So I feel like when we put the record out and when we play, there's a group, especially an older generation, that has respect for us and respects who we are as a band, no matter what. So I do think it's been a really good experience because of the music. I think the songs still stand. I think, how we write and what we write stands. I think that the heart of our band, whether you believe what we do, you can be affected by it. And then the lives that we lead, people respect that. So.
Yeah, it's a really good outlook to have, and that makes all the difference, right? How you kind of not just your presence when you're on stage or even as a record, but like the rest of the time, right? That all counts for something too. And so it's, something I think
Absolutely,
a lot of bands,
man.
Maybe don't put emphasis on, or, whatever the case is. So yeah, that's rad.
Yeah, I don't think, I think it is some bands just choose to have that persona, right? Like, because there are some parts of hardcore that are really like similar to big rock music. Like they party, they get chicks, they handle business when business needs to be handled in a certain way. There are some bands that's how they choose to be a band, and that's their thing, right? For us, we just chose not to do that. We chose to serve. And so whether that's helping bands load onto stage, helping bands load up at night, selling a band's merch for them while they play, that kind of stuff matters. It's not cool, right? Like kids don't buy your shirt because they know that, if things happen, you could whoop some ass. Like that sells merch, right? Like, oh, this band's the hardest band that I've ever seen. But the things we do, we don't really want to shout them out or talk about it. If another band that we've helped or been cool with wants to talk about it, awesome. But I would much rather earn respect than tons and tons of record sales because of hype, right?
Yeah. So you're saying Advent won't have a shirt that says "We ain't whooping no ass"?
We ain't opening no cans of whoop ass.
There you go. Yeah, awesome. Well, let's get into some of these albums that mean something to you from Bridge 9A.
Yeah, man.
Like I said, I don't know a lot of the. I mean, There's a few for sure that like were big albums, where I saw the bands live or my friends were listening to them, so they're familiar enough. But I always love hearing, thoughts from somebody who really knows the music and who's passionate about it. And so that's the first one we'll talk about is Have Heart, Songs to Scream at the Sun. This is the second and final studio album by Have Heart, released on July 8th, 2008. The band announced their breakup the next year, which I'm sure was unfortunate for many. So why is this band meaningful to you in this album specifically?
So two things. I think that Have Heart is one of the most important straight edge bands of this new generation, and I think I think this record is probably one of the most important records that Bridge Nine's ever put out. I think lyrically, it connected a lot of people to some deeper emotional things. They talk about self-doubt. I guess you could say even mental illness, stress, struggle, the idea to be something that you deep down inside, you're not, but the pressure to feel you have to do it. And I think that they really connected with a lot of kids, adults, whatever you want to call them, on a deeper level on this record. So I think it's one of the most important hardcore records of the past 20 years. Absolutely.
And why this one versus the previous one? Was that The Weight We Carry? Is that what it was called?
Yeah. So that's a great record. The writing on this, so take the lyrics away, the writing on this is phenomenal. So I am a big, and this is something that kind of flows through every one of these records. It's simple in the best possible way. So the type of guy I am, I've never been a like a animals as leaders, like super tech,
right?
Show off type of fan of music. That's just not my thing. I respect it. I think that Between the Buried Me are one of the greatest technically written songwriters in modern time.
Yeah.
Friends of ours, I love them. But to me, songs that last a lifetime are simple. It has a melody that you can connect with. I think it needs to be something that people can relate to. Like, I can play that. Why is AC/DC one of the greatest rock bands of all time?
Still
because
wondering.
it's four on the floor.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's simple. It gets locked in your head. So they're worried about the song, not to show off, right? Like, I want everyone to just watch me play guitar. I don't want that. I want to bang my head. I want to smash my fist on the ground, and I want to be able to sing along to everything you do. And to Have Heart, I think musically, first Kurt Ballou recorded it. Kurt Ballou's on this 3 times on this list that we're going to talk about as far as producing.
Yeah.
So the sound of the record, the songwriting, and the lyrics, I think it's the greatest release Bridge Nine has released.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the reason I asked that is because I remember, is it The Weight We Carry? Is that what it's called? The first one?
I believe the first one.
Things We Carry or some. Yeah, like I remember that one just like blowing up here. Like, everybody was talking about Have Heart, and there was people, driving down to the States to different festivals or shows to see them. And I'm not sure if they came through here or not, but yeah, I just, even just the record cover is like stuck in my head with the like sunrise.
That's beautiful.
Kind of thing. And so yeah, I was just curious why, like, if there was anything different about this one versus the first one that stood out. But yeah, lots of good thoughts, and definitely a band that was done too soon. There's a lot of bands like that. But it seemed like, when these guys went out, like they were just kind of, right at their peak, and then I'm not sure what happened with them, but
They were cool. We actually played a show on that. They did like a breakup tour, world tour, and we played with them in Florida. That was incredible. We were on tour with Call to Preserve, great band. We were just our tours met up, so it was Call to Preserve, us, Foundation, which released a record on Bridge 9 that's phenomenal. Gone Too Soon, Cruel Hand, and Have Heart. It was incredible. I think it was in Orlando, and they're real guys. Like it wasn't they roll up in a van and trailer. I mean, the way that tour went, those guys could have had a bus. If anyone understands like ticket sales and things like that, they could have had a $25, $30 show ticket. They could have charged whatever they wanted. It would have sold out. They could have been on a bus. They could have all walked away with, $50,000, $60,000 a piece in their pocket. But it was like a $10 show or $15 show. Like they kept it real, even though they were the level they were. And they brought hardcore to the world, like literally to the world. Like they play in places I'd never even heard before.
Yeah.
Same with some other bands on here. Like I think they changed people's lives 100%.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And it's really cool hearing that kind of firsthand impact that they had on you, musically and as a person too. That's cool. So the second one is Terror, Lowest of the Low. So this album was released on Bridge 9 2003, and it was re-released on Trustkill in 2005. Do you know what the story is with that one?
I think that it was one of those one and done. So Todd Jones, who I'm a huge Todd Jones fan, Carry On, Terror, Nails, Betrayed, phenomenal songwriter. And then Scott Vogel from one of my favorite bands, Buried Alive. I think it was, hey, we're putting this record out. You're a legit hardcore label. Do you want to do it? And so Chris was like, yeah, of course, we'll do it. I actually pre-ordered this record. So I believe the 7-inch sold out. So I ordered, and if I wasn't an idiot and lost stuff, it was probably worth a lot of stuff. The CD came in a metal tin that was screen printed with Terror, and it was like a black, so it looked like a 7 or like a 4-inch or whatever record, but it was a CD and it came in this metal tin. Huh. I was so sick. I said it about Have Heart is about taking hardcore to the world, but I think Terror truly has taken hardcore to the ends of the earth. They've played everywhere, and places you wouldn't even think like hardcore would exist. They played there. And when this record came out, it's Todd Jones. I already loved everything he wrote, and Scott being from Buried Alive, which I still think is one of the best hardcore bands of the mid to late 90s. Why wouldn't anyone love this record? Yeah. Like it's great. And I think that in modern hardcore, the band is still around. Terror reigns supreme over every other band.
And was this their only release on Bridge 9?
I think they went and put an EP out later on. And then I think they did a couple other things with Bridge 9 later on down the road.
Yeah, because if they were on Trustkill, and then I think they were on Victory later on.
Victory,
maybe something else after that. So
they've released stuff, I believe, with like Triple B Records. They've released so much. Their catalog is deep.
Yeah, is that a band that you still keep up with? You still like everything they put out?
Every release, I pick it up. They had I'm still a fan of hardcore. I still love it. For Thanksgiving, it was actually Black Friday. They did a live stream. Man, I pre-ordered the ticket to the live stream. I got the shirt, the stick tight long sleeve.
Nice.
I'm 38 years old and I still do it. Like I think everything that band writes is sick. Like there isn't anything they write that's not on it. And they've had some member changes, but it's like Scott and Nick, the drummer, have been since the beginning. Killer duo, but dudes from Donnybrook, from No Warning, from Down to Nothing, from Cruel Hand. Like they just have killers in that band all the
that's
time.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it's cool to see, not only them, but lots of other bands from that era, still going in some way, shape, or form. So that's cool that they're still putting out music that engages, old school fans.
Yeah. And they're still about it. They've cleared a path for young kids to come in and understand how to do it right. And when I say how to do it right, not how to write songs that make you a big band, but how to be a band that sticks by what you say you believe in. It's super easy to get to a certain age and then just, I'm good, I'm done. And those guys, they've got lives and they do other things, but they still are about a hardcore lifestyle. It's awesome. They're legit as it comes.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, moving to number 3, No Warning, Ill Blood. So this is the second album by a Canadian band. Nice to see. It was released on November 26, 2002 on Bridge 9, and it was the band's last album on the label. Why does this one have meaning to you or stand out to you?
Freaking put it in and press play, and it's from start to finish. It is awesome. They did a 7-inch on Bridge 9. I think it was just called No Warning. I could be wrong. That's incredible. But this is that perfect sound that is 100% hardcore with a tinge of metal in it. To me, it's the closest I've ever heard a band to sounding without ripping off with being their complete own to Age of Quarrel by Cro-Mags. Like it's got that same energy, that same feel, almost that same arrogance. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
And these guys, again, know how to write songs. Like they're simple songs, but they're well crafted. They're incredible. It's a great record. A band that has, there was all of this hype around them. There was all this folklore about them. Anywhere from, I think at Posse Numbers Fest, there was a rumor, and it could have actually happened, where the singer, they did I can't remember, so they did a cover song and he smashed a beer or something like that. He was supposed to be straight edge, and the rumor mill loved No Warning, and it made their hype even better. So yeah, no, they didn't sound like any other band at the time, and no other band has been able to touch them with that sound.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and for being a Canadian band, I don't know, I definitely didn't hear about them, anytime, around this release or even years after. I can't remember when I first heard them. I saw them a number of years ago, maybe with Comeback Kid or Misery Signals or something. But it's just always interesting with, Canada's a big country, but it's small in, like I was saying, before, with how many places there are to play in. So I'm always interested when there's bands. It's I never remember really hearing about that band and them coming through. But, listening to this, it's not a super mainstream kind of sounding album or something. It's, a lot more raw. So maybe they're just one of those bands that, maybe played smaller shows or just didn't play tours that I would have heard of or something.
I don't know how much they toured on that record. I guarantee they probably did at least one full U.S. And they were from Canada. But the record they put out after, and I feel like an idiot for forgetting it, that was on a subsidiary of a major, and it had a different sound. Still sick, but I think Ben Cook starts doing a little singing on it, and some people hated on it, but
okay.
They know how to write songs, man, and it is a mosh filled record. When that's the first song, Behind These Walls. When it starts out, like if you're watching them, like everyone's getting punched in the neck, everyone, because the room was going to erupt and explode.
Yeah.
Just so sick. And, the guitar player, I can't remember his name, who helped write that record. I think Jordan, he's in Terror now. So, so all the new records, probably the past 3 or 4 records, Jordan and Martine in Terror wrote it. So like, again, they know how to write songs. And they're great at the craft that they do. So it's a perfect record.
Awesome. Well,
start to finish.
This next one, I'm not sure if I've heard of this band, Carry On, A Life Less Plagues. This was released on October 16th, 2001. So this is a long time ago. I can't remember if if I could find this one on streaming today. I think it was on there. It took a little bit of searching on there, but yeah, tell me about this band.
Amazing band. So they'd done a 7-inch before this. And then they put this out. So this is Todd Jones. It's not his first band, but it was like the band that made Todd Jones the folklore that Todd Jones is, who later on went to start Terror with Scott and Nick. Awesome band. It's got that like these like youth crew structure of a song, super fast, super short songs. It's got some mosh parts, but it's not really heavy. It recorded, Kurt Ballou recorded this, phenomenal. And it took what bands like 10 Yard Fight, Shark Attack, all that kind of stuff. And it was like a modern version of that. So angry, aggressive, when that like posi-core kind of like, expansion happened in hardcore, they were the complete opposite of that. They were super, kind of gloom and doom and not happy. They did their own thing, and they kind of revived that style of really fast, aggressive, angry, punk-laced hardcore.
Yeah. And did they have releases after this? Like, did they go on for a while?
No. So Carry On was a straight edge band, and I believe before the record came out that the singer sold out. And at that time, I believe everyone else in the band was still straight edge. And so they're like, we're not going to be a band anymore. But Bridge 9, and this is like interviews I've read, I believe Chris called Todd and was like, dude, I've sunk a lot of money into this record. Can you please tour at least once with it, like, so I can try to make my money back?
Right.
And so they did like I think a full US. Obviously, didn't hit all 50 states, but every song still holds up, man. Like I mean, there's songs on there that are 20 seconds long, but it's a complete song. It's kind of weird. Super gritty, fast. It has that Kurt Ballou like sound and like, production. So it's got a lot of energy, but it's clear. Again, man, really, really good songwriting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. That something is, like, when we say 20-second songs, like, there's a lot of punk bands that have short songs, and I don't know a lot of those that really, stand out to me. So it's cool when, a band can focus on really short pieces like that have a lasting impression. Yeah,
it's great. If you, I think anyone who got into punk, especially like the harder parts of punk, would definitely dig this record. But if you're into metal, if you're into hardcore, it's got everything for you on there. It's really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, their last pick here is American Nightmare / Give Up the Ghost, American Nightmare. This release, like, there was some, there was another band called American Nightmare or something, and they were going to get sued and have to change their name, or what kind of, so when I was looking this up, it was, even on Spotify, like, it was kind of confusing trying to find it, and just even looking at their Wikipedia page. And so, what can you tell me about this band and why this album stands out to you, and kind of what was going on with it?
Yeah. So first going back, so I believe when this came out, it was the Please Die 7-inch or demo. That's what it was. American Nightmare, Please Die. And I believe this is, and I could be wrong, someone could text me when they listen to this and be like, you're an idiot. But I'm almost certain that this is the record that Chris Wren, who is the founder, owner, leader of Bridge 9, fought a dude in a parking lot, won $500, won enough money to press 1,000 copies of this, or 500 copies, whatever, of this record. And it's what jumped Bridge 9, made Bridge 9 who the amazing label that they are. It's not my favorite. Something special, like no band was sounding like this. And then they later went on to, when they put background music out, it was like, game over. If you're playing this style of hardcore, you should learn how to write songs, because this is a perfect record. But so long story short, background music came out, and I believe background music came out on Equal Vision. There was a band from Boston. So this American Nightmare's from Boston. Tim was in 10 Yard Fight, and some other dudes joined, called American Nightmare, which is American Nightmare is a Misfits song.
Oh, okay.
So there was a Misfits cover band, I believe, that only played on Halloween night in a bar, right? But they had been doing it for 10 years. And so they sued American Nightmare because obviously they were traveling, touring the world, putting records out, selling tons of records. Through the lawsuit, they ended up having to change their name to Give Up the Ghost, re-release everything. So this came out, Give Up the Ghost, American Nightmare. Background music came out as Give Up the Ghost, relabeled. Love American, the next record, was always Give Up the Ghost. So they had to kind of change everything around to it.
That's annoying.
So that's kind of why that name change happened.
Okay. And did you keep up with this band as well? Did they keep putting out records that caught your attention?
Of course. Dude, every record they put out's a banger. They put a record out last year.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot different. So Wes, who is the vocalist for the band, he wild dude. So I remember seeing him. So the first time I saw them was, I believe it was, they were doing an East Coast run for this 7-inch with Kill Your Idols. And I drove down to South Carolina. Chris from Stretch Armstrong, who is a great friend, he put the show on. So some of the Stretch guys were there. It was, I can't even remember who played besides, it may have been this band called Reinforced or The First Step, I can't remember, opened, and then it was American Nightmare and then Kill Your Idols. And there were probably 25 people there. It was one of those magical, like I don't have, being from North Carolina, like I don't have a lot of those stories. Like I saw this band before anyone else did and before they were big, but that's one that's in my quiver of like, I can talk about. So we drove down to Columbia, South Carolina, 25 people. And it was amazing. Wes, I mean, it's 25 people, so they're not even on the stage. And they went wild, right? And Wes, I remember he like grabbed my shirt and was like punching me in the chest while he was singing, and I was like scared / excited. Like this is it was everything we want, right? Like sometimes you want to feel like I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know what could happen, and it gave me that feeling. So ever since I saw them, I was locked in. So every release is great because again, phenomenal songwriters, great musicians. They had a guy named Jared who I believe he played drums on the 7-inch. He definitely played drums on Please Die. I'm pretty sure he played drums on background music. But this dude was like the drumming god of the Northeast. So he tracked all the original or early American Nightmare stuff, the Hope Conspiracy, End Note. Yeah. He recorded on that. Throwdown. He did Throwdown. I think his name's Jared Davis. Suicide File. He did that. Like,
okay, wow. He's
got a super unique drum style that you can kind of hear on all this. But I mean, just phenomenal record, man.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, that rules. And I love hearing kind of the passion behind it. And you know, sometimes to me, hardcore can be one of those genres where it maybe doesn't seem like there's as much like dynamic or quality songwriting, or you know, maybe that's what maybe what outside people would hear, you know, like there's no solos, so they must not be good guitar players, or you know, all these different things. And so I just love, you know, talking with someone that, you know, can draw out and pull out all these, like, you know, whether it's production or songwriting or just things that make these songs hold up over time is really unique and really cool. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on all those.
Yeah, man. I think, you know, one thing that people forget that, like, a lot of people will try to, it's like the Eddie Van Halen effect. Like, they get the same guitar Eddie Van Halen had. They've got a 5150. They've got it mic'd. He mic'd them in all his records. They learn all the Van Halen licks. They record it, and it's like, dang, that doesn't sound like Eddie Van Halen. There's a reason. It's because it's not the equipment. It's how you play and the feel you put into it. And so we've got 3 records that we talked about that Kurt Ballou recorded.
Yeah.
But they all sound different because it's different people writing the songs and playing it. So there's so much in like the actual person playing it, and it doesn't have to show off, right? It's like, it's how you play a riff. Are you ahead of the beat? Are you a little bit behind? Are you staying in a pocket? You know, there's so many things that make up a really good song and good songwriters. And you don't have to be someone who graduated from Berklee School of Music to be a great songwriter. And I think that's one amazing thing about hardcore. And every single band that we talked about, they care about how their songs are written and played. Yeah. And I truly believe that they're like, we want to write songs that mean something to people, right? Like they want to say something, but 2, that in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years, you'll put these records on and it'll be just like you're listening to the Omega sessions from Bad Brains, where it still holds up, or Age of Quarrel from Cro-Mags. Like, wow, it's still fresh and it's still something that I want to listen to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I love hearing that side of things. That's just kind of helps to put it into perspective and give a different take on you know, these albums that, you know, a lot of them are very raw and gritty. You know, it's not, you know, like super polished hardcore. So maybe that's what I was kind of saying. Like, it's cool to hear, you know, because even for myself, you know, listening through these, you know, it can get tiring on my ears, even though I am a fan of the kind of music. But when I hear, you know, your perspective or someone's perspective that like can really draw things out of the songs, it just adds so much more. You know, even if I don't go back and listen to it, I appreciate it more when I see this band, you know, or the title or something. It's gonna be like, I want to look into this a bit more because, you know, Johnny gave it, you know, really good recommendation, and he had all these, you know, kind of cool insights to share about it. So really appreciate hearing that from a passionate music fan.
Absolutely, man. And, you know, one thing that I love doing is I love looking and listening to bands that came after certain bands, or find bands that you really like and dig into them a little deeper. And that's what's really cool about hardcore and punk and some types of metal is a lot of times, obviously now during a pandemic, you can't, but if you see a band, you can talk to them and you can really dig in and find out who they liked and then who they liked. And you can it brings new life into these records. Like, I guarantee that Andrew and Jeremy from Comeback Kid, who, you know, broadcasting and, you know, all like the later Victory Comeback Kid records, they're a little more polished and melodic.
Yeah.
Those dudes loved these records and they inspired them to start that band. And without these bands writing the way they wrote, Comeback Kid wouldn't have happened. And I only use Comeback Kid just because it's a pretty relevant band that I know who are some legit guys who have been in it for a long time. And so you can always do that with records. You can kind of trace back, and for me, doing that's how I got into bands, but also it gives a new respect to know that this band or musician helped inspire this band or musician that inspired this. You kind of go down that line.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, so kind of wrapping things up here, what's the current status of Advent, Beloved again? I mean, obviously, things aren't lining up very well for anyone these days. But what are kind of, when things are somewhat back to normal, like what are the hopes, besides Furnace Fest and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll start with Advent. So Mike lives in Portland. I think he's looking at moving to Nashville. Jordan lives in Nashville. Joe and I live here. So we've got a plan to when we can get back together. It'll be sometime this year. We're going to go in and record another few songs. We won't ever do a full length. Like, to me, at the age I'm at and the time that I could really dedicate, I want to write 2 to 4 songs that we're super, super stoked on and release it. I think that's it. In this day of digital age of music, I think that's the best way to release songs. So we've already got songs written that we just got to record, and then we'll play whenever we can play, right? And then Beloved, we've got, so we went in the studio this summer and we recorded a song that we were going to record 17 years ago. We recorded a cover of Like a Song by U2 off the War record. That came out really, really great. So if Furnace Fest happens in September, we're going to play Furnace Fest. We've already got a Winston show that was supposed to happen back in April that sold out in like 25 hours or something ridiculous. We're going to have a second show with that, and then maybe here or there. We'd like to record more songs for Beloved as we can do it. We won't ever do a record. We're not going to be like a real full-time band or anything like that. Right. But we're going to do what we can do when we can do it, and try anything we do. We're going to try to make it memorable and important, and put everything we have into it. Yeah,
awesome. One last question with the U2 cover. That's cool to hear that was something you wanted to do back then, and you still did it now. How did that kind of play out? You guys have been gone a long time. There's all this hype with you being back, and then releasing a cover song. Kind of what was the decisions around that, or why did you want to record that one so badly?
Yeah, so kind of going back to 17 years ago. Beloved, we had a lot of different musical tastes, and I think that's what helped us sound the way we sounded. But we all had a respect and love for U2. To me, the first time I heard Joshua Tree, it was actually probably off Rattle and Hum. So right after Joshua Tree, they do a version of, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, with a church in like Harlem. It's on, I believe, Rattle and Hum. And it was the first time I actually felt music. So I grew up in the church. I love being part of the church, and I love singing songs. When I heard that, I finally understood what people talked about, feeling music, right? Like it literally touched me to my soul. And I was like, this feeling is crazy. Like I'm emotional. I understand things, and I don't know, 12 years old, 13 years old. I'm a young kid.
Yeah.
And so it stuck with me. And my love for U2 kind of, grew. We all met, we all loved U2. And so when we were coming back, we never got to do it because we broke up. The reality is we're like, we know we can play the songs, right? Because we're fairly proficient musicians. We can play these songs, but I wonder if we can like, construct a song. And so it follows somewhat of the same pattern. Like we didn't want to change it. It's a perfect song as is, but we wanted to see, can we be creative? Like, will it sound good? Right. Like we do change it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was a test. We're like, is it going to work? Because the reality is we could try to write something and it could suck. And if it does, we just need to be like, all right, we're going to play Furnace Fest and we're going to hang it up. We know our time is done.
Yeah.
So it was a test, really. Like it was faster than like the writing process.
Right. Yeah.
And we could dip our feet into to see if we still had it. And I think it came out really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember, I mean, the pictures were floating around and the hype was there. And then you guys put a post saying something about like it wasn't going to be original music. And so it was kind of that curious, like, oh, like, okay, like they're back after all this time. They're going to, it's not original. What's it going to be? But yeah, you guys did a great job of that. And because I'm not a huge, I don't really know you two really at all, it was still kind of like a new song to me because I didn't really know the original anyway. So.
Nice.
So that's, I guess for those that really know that song, then it's cool to hear your take on it. For those that don't, then it's, just to have new music.
It could
again,
be,
so.
Yeah. But we do have a little something coming out soon that will be exciting to share with people.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Johnny, it's been a pleasure getting to hear your insight and hear your passion for music and Bridge 9. And so, yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Thank you.
And to share, and I really look forward to whenever we can do this again about some other band or topic or something, because, this was a blast.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of the week.